to Drinking Bros, presented by GhostBed.com.
Welcome to Drinkin' Bros, kids. Very, very special edition of the show today. I often say all the time on Drinkin' Bros podcast that this is the greatest job in the world. However, if I were to switch and have one job in this life, it would be Kirk Herbstreit's job from College GameDay, because you, my friend, have the greatest life there possibly is. Is it as great as we think it is as a sports fan?
Well, if you're a college football fan, you couldn't handpick a better job. So for me, it's been absolutely ridiculous to be able to do what I do for a living for the last 25 years.
Wow, has it been that long?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah. And the thing is like you still look the same, so we don't really know how old you are or how long you've been doing it. I went to Ohio State, by the way, so I'm going to lead with that.
Sweet.
Go Buckeyes. And then you used to come into my bar. I was a bouncer at a bar called Ludlow's downtown.
Yeah.
You used to roll in. And my manager said to me when I first started, he said, hey, if Herby comes to the door, remember where you went to school and respect yourself, dude. He's not waiting in line. Wave him through and give him the wink.
Yeah, you're very kind. We would go to the patio.
Yep.
And the patio would shut down at like midnight, and we were just warming up, and then we'd go over to Ludlow's. So that arena district took off. We loved it down there. I've been there a long time, but boy, those were good years.
That was the best. We're not going to date ourselves, Kirk, because both of us look great for our age. We're not going to say what they are, but it was a blast. Everybody loves you. You couldn't have been like a cooler guy, and I think that's why you've lasted so long on GameDay, where it's like, it's a staple. It's a tradition, and everyone loves you everywhere you go. How is it for you personally when you step onto a college campus? Are you able to go anywhere without people just clamoring?
When you do a job as long as I've done it, people definitely, you're in the public eye, right? I mean, you work on a show that college football fans like, then they watch the show, they like the sport. That's the thing I think with GameDay. I just think, the show has grown quite a bit from when I first joined in 1996 in my first year. And I think you guys can relate to this in doing sports and doing TV. It has a lot to do with the sport you're covering. If I did the show that I'm on and it was the NBA or MLB or even the NFL, it just wouldn't have this kind of following. It wouldn't have this kind of passion. And I think college football fans, no matter where you are, no matter what region you're in, people are rabid about their team and about tailgating and about the band and just everything, all the traditions. And so when you wrap our show around that, in my case for 25 years, when you come on a campus, people are fired up to see you because they feel like when our show shows up, it's a big game. Right. And we've kind of put a stamp that week on their campus and that being the big game of the week.
Yeah, that's it's interesting. So I've got two questions based on your statement. The first one is just kind of fun. How much do you get harassed going into Michigan? Because
luckily he doesn't have to go there much anymore.
Yeah,
there's no big games left anymore in Michigan, so you're good on that.
We've not been up there a ton, but it just depends, dude. I mean, like some of them, if they actually listen to their TV, they would find that I'm not your typical hate Michigan guy. I'm not. It's just not my thing. I try to be very objective and analyze them just like I analyze any team. But you're always going to get obviously wise guys that are smart asses and just have to say whatever they're going to say.
Of course. The second question is with the movement and the SEC now, and with I think the Pac-12, ACC, and Big Ten are talking about something as well. Do you think I agree with you that the history of and we were talking about this before the show. One of our producers mentioned it, that the history is almost a character in the movie, kind of like how the Field of Dreams was a character in the movie.
Yeah.
And people love that history. Is this going to upset some of that stuff with these transitions happening?
I think so. I think it has to. If you take Texas and OU out of the Southwest region where they were in, before Southwest Conference and the Big 8 and Big 12, and all of a sudden they're in the SEC. Now they're playing Alabama and Florida and Georgia. it's different, and I'm trying to embrace change. I'm a traditionalist. I like what you were talking about. I love rivalries, old rivalries. I love some of the games that you can think about when you were a kid and watch some of those great games. And I just don't know where we are right now. I don't know what the Big Ten is going to do. I don't know what the Pac-12 is going to do. We don't know what the remaining teams in the Big 12 are. They going to try to stay in and be a Big 12 conference, or are they going to leave altogether and join other conferences? So I think the fear of the unknown has a lot of people concerned about the future of the sport.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I heard you on another show earlier this week talking about a prediction of maybe 4 power conferences, and then they get rid of everyone, get their own president, have them run that, and it is not involved with the NCAA.
Think about that, though. Think about what you're saying, but remove the words from it. Instead of 4 power conferences, say 4 divisions and 2 conferences, and now you're talking about pretty much every major sport, all the big professional sports. Right?
Correct. Yeah.
Some kind of breakdown like that. I mean, it makes sense, frankly.
Here's the real quick difference, though, is the NHL has a commissioner. The NFL has a commissioner, MLB, NBA. Whether you like them or not, the bottom line is they have commissioners that oversee that entire sport. We have, in college football, we have currently 5 Roger Goodells that are worried about their own constituents. They're worried about their own fans, their own ADs, presidents, players, coaches, and they should be. And so Greg Sankey in the SEC, he's bringing in Texas and OU, and he's thinking strictly about the SEC and how great can he make the SEC. Kevin Warren's in the Big Ten. He's thinking, how great can I make the Big Ten? My concern is, who's looking out after the entire country of moving this sport together collectively in a certain direction? That's why I think if they do branch off, they will name one voice as the commissioner of the sport, and then that way collectively we can all improve as a group.
Yeah. I just hope that one voice isn't Paul Feinbaum. That's just me personally. Look, as an Ohio State guy, I can't stand the SEC. At least we're not going to have to hear that anymore, because there's 83 teams in the SEC. So when you're chanting that now, it doesn't really mean as much anymore. So thank God that's going to be over pretty soon. Boy, am I fucking tired of that nonsense.
This is 30 years of Ohio State ingrained in his fucking brain right here. Nobody else cares.
Not at all. It's, again, you have 84 teams in it. Like, congratulations. Nick Saban, I have no problem calling him the greatest coach of all time. And to me, college football is all about coaching, which is why you've seen the same 4 teams in the top, 5 for the last 10 years, essentially. You got Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma occasionally, and then, that's whoever else wants to pop in there, maybe Georgia.
Notre Dame is usually in the periphery as well.
Notre Dame gets up there, Georgia gets up there, and LSU, but that kind of sucks, though, really, for the game. I think it's like, I'm not a huge NBA fan, but there for a while it was Golden State and Cleveland. It was like, all right, no matter what happens, eventually it's going to be Golden State and Cleveland.
Right.
And the NFL, you get some teams that'll get hot for a little bit, and then you'll get, all of a sudden the Kansas City Chiefs come around and the Patriots are knocked off, or I don't know, like the Bucks last year made a run. So I miss having some parity. I miss having different teams, different storylines. Now, it's not Dabo Swinney's fault. It's not Ryan Day's fault. It's not Nick Saban's fault. I'll tell you what I think it is I think there's never been more of an emphasis on these kids, this generation of player getting to the NFL. I mean, they are all about getting to the NFL. Whereas when I played, you wanted to get to the NFL, but man, you could not wait to play college football on those big stages on national TV and hang out in college and enjoy it. These guys, I'm not saying they don't enjoy it, but man, they're focused on the NFL. So Ohio State, they come recruit a kid and they're like, what position do you play? And, oh, okay, well, at defensive line over the last 8 years, these are the guys that have played here. This is how much money they've made.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, come on and be a part of this. Oh, you play corner? Well, all right, let me point my corner list out. Here's the guys that we've had the last 7 years that have played corner for us, and they're all playing and starting in the NFL.
Do you think the NIL is going to have some mitigating factor on that kind of situation? Like, people can make money now as a brand on their own.
Yeah, but I think right now we're all on the outside. It's been 6 weeks. We're making such a big deal out of this. I saw a graphic yesterday in a seminar with ESPN, and so far the average name, image, and likeness has been $923. Now, don't get me wrong. I would have killed for $923 when I was in college. But I think that the idea that these guys are going to be making millions of dollars, don't give me, there might be a player here or there that might be making some good money. But most of these people, they're tweeting out something because they've got a big social media following. 53%, by the way, of those name, image, and likeness to this point were not football or men's basketball. Many of them are women. So it's not this wild, wild west, I feel like, that we're all portraying. Now let's just kind of keep watching to see how it changes. But right now it's just not as dramatic as I think a lot of people are expecting it to be.
Yeah, because, I mean, a guy like you, do you look back at it of like, shit, man, if that was around when I was in college, it would have been the greatest life of all time. Because let's face it, the only thing you're missing in college, being a college athlete, is the money behind it, unless you went to a USC, obviously. But I mean, I was gonna say you could have made more money during your career than Reggie Bush did. Yeah, exactly. But,
you're right. I didn't have any. I if I didn't get a scholarship to Ohio State, I would have probably joined the Marines or the Army. We didn't have a lot of money, so when I was on a scholarship, my dad occasionally would give me some money to try to get by, but I would have loved name, image, and likeness. But a little thing like getting enough money to be able to get have a relationship with a company like, I'll say Donato's, if you're from Columbus.
Yeah.
Get as much pizza as you want, or if you can get a new car, something like that would have been sweet. But that would have been a lot of fun to be able to dabble in that, because, man, at Ohio State, we're just trying to get into Ludlow's and Papa Joe's and high energy back in those days.
Yeah, because they're giving out cars. Mark Wahlberg, he's got a car dealership in Columbus. He gave out a car to a kid on the team the other day. Yeah.
No way. I didn't see that.
Yeah, and he shouted out Marky Mark, and I was like, come on, man. That shit never happened back in the day. And now he's posing with it on Twitter. Quinn Ewers is there out of Texas. And immediately his first tweet was a kombucha company out of Texas that he's working with. So he got paid for that. Did you see the BYU deal with a company came in and started to talk to their team? It's on social media, and they ended up having a walk-on come down and say, hey, you're our first employee, and we're gonna cover you're basically now on scholarship. Yep. And then they brought in another walk-on. They said, you're employee number 2. Then they said, every walk-on in this room stand up. And they're like, I don't know how many kids stood up, but a bunch of them. And they said, every one of you guys are part of this company. You're all on scholarship. So that was a different way of doing it. I've never seen that one yet. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting too. I mean, I grew up poor too. So one of I don't remember who it was. Which one of you dicks asked me this question the other day about who should you pocket the money they're giving you for the scholarship and do the loan and invest the money in something? Now they would have said crypto probably.
Yeah.
Or do you just take the scholarship and ride with it? You don't want to seem like a dick if somebody's giving you a gift.
Yeah.
Like, actually, I know you want to give me an education, but what I'm going to do is go into debt instead.
Yeah, just Venmo me that cash. I'll make sure it goes towards my education. I'm
getting an NFT of my education.
Exactly. Just slide that on down the line. You're good to go.
Good
you were Centerville, right? Is that where you went to high school? Yeah.
Yep.
My cousins went there as well. Shout out to the Osip family. They were all Centerville as well. Now your kids though went somewhere else besides Ohio State. They ended up at Clemson, right?
Yeah. My twins went to Clemson. They were there. Tough way to start their first couple of years in the global pandemic, especially last year. Then I have a senior last year. He's now a freshman at Ohio State. And so, I got 3 in college, and I have a youngster who's my last one. He's just a freshman in high school.
Do you want him to go to Ohio State? And was there any pressure on that? Because I know a lot of Buckeye fans came down on you for praising Clemson one year, saying it's because your kids go to school there, not because you think they're the best team and everything else. And again, I'm sure you get that all the time.
A guy that's been in the business for 25 years was a college quarterback himself. Yeah, he's probably just going to say stuff because his kids go there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You remember that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, though. I mean, again, there's a fraction of every fan base that are just a bunch of clowns, and I tend not to listen to that group. I've been doing this, as you guys said, 25 years. with all due respect to my own kids, if videotape and a lot of prep work says that if they were playing and they were not going to win that game, I would pick them not to win that game. I really don't care. So it had nothing to do at all with that. That's the part of social media that it's just kind of asinine when you get comments like that. I take a lot of pride in the work that I do, and you mentioned Ohio State fans. I remember them giving you grief about this. I was about to say, okay, where are you going with this? Because there's a lot of different areas you could go with this, but it doesn't pull back or hold back me from my love affair still with the university and how much I appreciate them literally every single day. The gratitude I have for the opportunities that being a Buckeye, the doors that it opened up for me. So despite the jackasses that are out there, the vocal minority, I'm still a diehard Ohio State guy.
Yeah, and the same, by the way. And that's why I wanted to bring that up, and I apologize for interrupting you. But, with Dan and I, we've been doing a sports show for, 4 or 5 years now at this point. And I'm the same. Like, everybody gambles on it, right? That's one of our biggest sponsors is a gambling sponsor, mybookie.com. Shout out to them. Drinkin Bros doubles your deposit on that. But we've learned to become objective over the years, and people get on me about Ohio State and was like, look, I can't help that my team is in the top 4 every year.
That's the thing. I mean, it's like if they would mix in an 8-4 once in a while, I would not look like a homer. But what are you going to say? They suck? Oh, they're 11-0 again. Like, how do you criticize them? How do you pick against them when they're the best team in the Big Ten by far? Every year. It's difficult when you have to keep saying you're throwing bouquet of roses at them every single year. And yet again, if you objectively don't say they should go to a playoff because Alabama maybe or whoever's better,
right?
That's when I think they get kind of worked up. But yeah, you guys get a little bit of taste of that as well for your objectivity.
Well, I went to Penn State, so I can shit on my team all day.
Yeah, he went to Penn.
No, man. Last year, the 2-point conversion against Indiana, the review, it went against them. I think it ripped them apart. And then Clifford didn't have a great year at quarterback, and they played Ohio State week 2, and it kind of season got sideways.
It was off the rails, pretty early.
But dude, I'm telling you right now, they open up with Wisconsin. If there's a team that has a chance for a bounce back year in the Big Ten, maybe nationally, I would say Penn State.
We'll see.
I'll be surprised. Clifford's going to have to play a lot better. But, if we get full stadiums and, they play Auburn early in the year, which will be kind of hyped up. But I didn't know you're a Penn State guy.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite place to go do a game, especially in the whiteout.
We were at the whiteout against Ohio State 2 years ago when they snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory. That was a great game.
Man, one of the best.
It was actually a great game. I wonder if is the Big Ten becoming like the ACC with Ohio State and Clemson and everybody else? Is that over now?
Yeah,
that's what I feel like.
Are Penn State or Indiana or Michigan a real threat at all to Oklahoma or to Ohio State at this point?
I feel like it depends on how the schedule lays out. Like if Ohio State has to go to Penn State, go back and look the last 5-6 years. Ohio State, Penn State. A lot of times it's a 1-possession game. Mm-hmm. We say whatever we want about Ohio State's at a different level. That game typically is a 4-quarter game. And if it's over at State College, it's tough to beat Penn State over there when they're a good team. So I don't know if Clemson has a Penn State. I know North Carolina with Mac Brown's getting better. They're real hyped up this year. They're a top 10 team with a great quarterback. But Indiana, man, they've been a pleasant surprise. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know how you guys feel with when you talk about the Big Ten. I like to see Michigan be better. I like Ohio State to beat them every year, but I'd at least like to see them as a powerhouse.
Well, it's been embarrassing. Indiana's the new Michigan right now, and it just doesn't have that same kick.
No.
I'm not if Michigan was the Michigan from 10 years ago even, and they were playing in Ohio State, I'd want to go to that game. I don't really give a shit about either one of those two teams, but that's a game.
Right.
How great, though, with Penn being a Penn State fan, you think of those uniforms. When Penn State goes to Ann Arbor and they're wearing their all whites, Michigan's ranked 12th in the country, 8th in the country. I mean, it's game on. There's so much excitement, or when Michigan comes into the state college and they're ranked 7th or 8th in the country. Yeah. You'd rather have them like that than not ranked.
I don't have that same feeling even now that they're that good about Indiana. I don't know if I ever will.
I don't think so. They don't have any history or tradition.
It's like you missed a movie in childhood, and now you go back and watch it. You're like, this is fucking stupid. And everybody that saw it as children, they're like, hey, this is a great movie. I'm like, no, it's not.
But shockingly, when Indiana's great at basketball, I feel better about life.
Everybody
I'm like, all right, great. Yeah, I would like to see them return to glory in that because of the history of it. Going back to the objectivity thing real quick, by the way, because we just had our kind of prediction show yesterday of who we thought was going to win.
For the NFL.
For the NFL. And then we threw in at the ends like, hey, I hate to disappoint you here tomorrow, but look, this is I think this is the first time we did pick Ohio State, actually, to win this year. Last year we had picked Clemson. We were incorrect, but who was going to bet against Trevor Lawrence last year? So this year, you got 3 teams in the top 4 that have brand new quarterbacks with Clemson, Ohio State, and Alabama. Georgia seems to be the dark horse on a lot of people's minds. And then Spencer Rattler out of Oklahoma. I've seen some Oklahoma picks as well this year. I don't know if their defense can hold up. Who do you have winning it all this year? Or are you allowed to say?
It's still early for me, honestly, because so many of these young freshmen, after some of these scrimmages emerge, I get a hold of coaches like Coach Saban and Coach Day, and I talk to these guys about, hey, wait till you see this guy kind of thing. It kind of impacts you. Even while we've been on this broadcast, I think Georgia's had 2 starters on defense that just announced they're injured and probably going to miss the first few weeks of the season. So things like that, they happen, and you got to kind of hold your cards until you get to the start of the season, because people hold these predictions, as you guys know, like like life and death, so I like to give myself the best chance, but you're never going to go wrong with the teams you mentioned. Oklahoma, to me, is their defense last year made incredible strides. Their offense is going to be scoring a ton of points. I think Ohio State is actually going to be better. I mean, think about what they lost with Trey Sermon and Justin Fields. I think they may have a chance to be better this year than they were last year. And so they'll be tough to beat in the Big Ten. And then Alabama, man, they lost their whole team. And there they are, preseason number 1. They lost their coordinators. And there they are, preseason number 1 again because of Nick Saban. So I think you can never go wrong with those teams that you mentioned. It just depends on the order and how you want to pick them. I'm calling the Clemson-Georgia game in Charlotte, September 4th. And we'll have a really good read on both of those teams right away.
I'm glad you brought that up because I went all in. So the reason why we picked so early, and we have to, gambling has now changed everything, by the way, in college football and NFL.
You get better odds, right?
I make 8 different bets on who's going to win the Natty throughout the season. It's like doing live betting, right?
Yes.
So
what's Ohio State right now if you pick them to win the national championship?
Ohio State is, I believe, 4-1 right now. Bama is the favorite. Oklahoma is right behind them. And then, look, Georgia's up there as well.
Clemson, too.
Yeah, and Clemson as well. Now, with us...
You guys should take a flyer for fun on like a Cincinnati or like an Iowa State.
If we had the 12-team playoff, I would.
Yes.
When that happens...
But, hey, man, I'm telling you, think about this. Cincinnati, they played Georgia great last year in the Sugar Bowl. They're already starting in the AP. I don't know where they are, 8 maybe? Somewhere in the
7.
top
7 or 8.
Think about this. They play Indiana, who's ranked, and they play Notre Dame. What you need when you're one of those teams that's not in the Power 5, you need a couple games in the non-conference to give you a chance to build a little bit of momentum. They got that. So Cincinnati is telling you might be – their whole team's back from a year ago. They might be worth a flyer, and their quarterback – if you're looking to be frisky, you may want to look at Desmond Ridder as a Heisman guy and a long shot guy to maybe win the Heisman. See,
there we go. So
I'm giving you info here.
Look, and I'll spin it back to you. My dark horse.
Kirk Herbstreit guaranteed that Cincinnati is winning the national title.
No, is that what happened? Yeah, that's what happened.
My dark horse for Heisman is the running back out of Iowa State. If I'm going to throw some cash on it for decent odds, right?
Yeah.
Running backs preseason odds are they're they don't work out very well very frequently. Remember Jonathan Taylor? I don't know what happened to him. Turned into exactly who we thought he was going to be in the NFL, a great running back. But for some reason that last year, what the fuck happened to that guy? That's why I don't make bets on running backs. It's always quarterbacks when I'm betting preseason.
It was a strange, It was a
quarterbacks and wide receivers tend to get all the love. The quarterbacks, you usually can't go wrong. It's almost like, who's the quarterback of a top 5 team or top 2 or 3 team? That's usually going to be the guy that wins the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, Herbie, but I bet against your kid's school. My lock of week 1, because we've already done it already, is I've got Georgia beating Clemson, and I'm telling you to take the money line. It was at plus 4.5. It is now down to 3. That's how many people are betting on Georgia. You're calling that game opening week on Saturday night.
Yep.
For me personally, Clemson has lost too many people. They've got a new quarterback. I know Justin Ross is coming back, but obviously Lawrence is gone. Etienne is gone. And Georgia's got a decent quarterback, which was kind of all they were missing for the last 3 or 4 years.
This is the next step for Dabo. Next step to the level of the greats.
Yes.
Right? Can he rebuild? Can he maintain a dynasty, if you want to call it that, for more than 5 or 6 years? Is going to be a decade worth or 15 or 20 years worth, right?
Yep.
We don't know yet. Yeah, he seems to be a good recruiter. He's getting good kids into the school. He seemed to have reloaded, but to be honest, the last 2 years of defense, that reload doesn't look nearly as good as that Wilkins, et cetera, defense that was there before, right?
No, and you've got to pronounce the last name of Clemson's quarterback all year. I'm just going with ukulele because I'm terrible at names. DJ Ukulele, but you're going to have to pronounce that all year.
Yeah, well, I'm not up to practice yet on that. I'm one of those guys that once I hit it.
You're a gamer.
I just go repeat it, repeat. Then I'm kind of in cruise control. I'm calling him DJ until we get into the season. But you guys make good points on Clemson. I would say this: when they lost Deshaun Watson, I think a lot of people wondered, okay, now we're going to see what they're really about, and then eventually Kelly Bryant had him for 1 year, and then they, of course, we saw Trevor Lawrence as a freshman lead him to a national championship. This defensive line, they think, is going to be this year as good, if not better. They've got some first rounders up there that were young players a year ago. They feel that they're ready to emerge. I think their defense will be a strong point of theirs. My biggest question is not Trevor Lawrence leaving, it's Travis Etienne. I don't know if people really appreciated what he meant to that offense. Catching the ball out of the backfield, running tough. He just was a great back, and he was for 3 years. And so how they replace him, I think, is a little bit of a mystery. But, Georgia's loaded. You mentioned JT Daniels, a kid moved over from USC. Yep. He's healthy now. We'll see if their team is healthy. I just told you they have a couple injuries already in camp on defense. Georgia seems to be one of those teams, whenever you get excited about them, something happens. Like their wide receiver Pickens, for example, who's an all-conference, all-American kind of guy, ACL in the offseason. He's out as of right now, could be out the entire year. So they just seem to be a team that, for whatever reason, can never catch a break. But regardless, both those teams, a lot at stake. Whoever wins that game is obviously in a really good spot for the rest of the year.
I can't remember an opening week game this big in a long time. Usually, it's Alabama versus someone, right? This year they're playing Miami on another network. That's not yours, so I'm not going to say who it is, Herbie. I don't give a shit about it because I'm watching this game. Because we're sending our crew to that game as well, and it's like, I can't remember. Man, I'd have to go back years to remember a game this big that has championship implications week 1.
Yeah. I mean, Alabama normally plays in these games, and occasionally they'll play an opponent that's maybe a top 15 opponent. But yeah, I've been calling these opening game on the opening weekend forever. There was 1 year that we had, maybe it was Oregon and LSU down at Dallas. That was a game that had a lot of hype because both teams were up near the top 5. But I can't remember one that's been like this, where you so much, like you said. Thing is, in NFL, you get the exhibition games, kind of work the kinks out, find out what your strengths are. Even high school football, and of course in college you don't. And to start off with a powerhouse top 5 team like that for both teams, it's exciting, challenging, and as long as you don't get blown out, I don't think you really get hurt too badly. You just don't want to lay an egg. And one time Alabama played USC, and I mean, they could have beaten them by 80 in one of these games. And USC ended up losing 3 games in a row. That was the year they eventually switched to Sam Darnold and won 9 straight on the back end. But they got embarrassed on that opening night. So you don't want to do that and hurt yourself making a run to getting back into the top 4.
Yeah, I know Dan. We've already had a bet on this. Dan's got Clemson that opening game.
Yeah, I don't think Clemson's going to have too many problems. The issue with Georgia, and I talked about this in the NFL preview show too. The issue with them, I think, great defense. But if you expose a great defense to enough offensive plays, they will fail. That's just how it works, right? Just like anything else. If you throw enough pitches, a guy's going to swing and miss X amount of times. And without the ability to keep the ball, not only score points, but keep that defense off the field, that defense, at least to some degree, becomes neutralized, right? And I think this kid from Clemson can move the ball down the field. I know JT Daniels is a good quarterback, but we've seen good quarterbacks at Georgia before, like Fromm, just completely evaporate. You know what I mean? Where the fuck did they go? Because they're not –
DJ looks sexy in that Notre Dame game. So, look, he's there, and I think he's going to be a great player. It's the pieces around him that I'm worried about.
The running back issue is a problem. I mean, if
ATN was just so good, dude.
You can definitely see them. I mean, Dabo is not one to misuse players. That's not what I mean to say by this, but having to lean on that kid both for yards on the ground and yards in the air enough, right? That plays well to a degree. It plays well to a Lamar Jackson level of success at Louisville, but it doesn't play well to a national title. Having a singular offense like that shit just doesn't work, right? But who knows? Maybe they got some running backs down there.
Yeah, well,
we'll see, right? I mean, honestly, we'll see.
We'll find out. The beauty is you get to call this opening game, and not only do you do game day, but you're in the booth. And now, in my opinion,
with Lee Corso,
with Corso, who we love, dude.
Yes.
And I know he was integral in your career because I think he helped get you hired. And then there was a rumor that I heard that ESPN was trying to get him out of there, and you were like, "Look, I want to keep him because that's the dude who got me in there, and I want him here."
No, I don't know if it's quite like that. I've always gone to bat for him for sure. But ESPN loves Lee. I mean, they've never wanted to get him out ever.
How could you?
Good.
I mean, he's like a made man.
Yeah, that would be a huge mistake.
As long as he wants to stay, and he didn't really get me into ESPN. But when I had my audition for Game Day, I was about 23 years old, and there weren't a lot of TV jobs back in those days when I was auditioning, and he made me feel like I was okay, like I belonged. But it was the first time I'd ever met him in my life. And so once the audition was over and I thought I did terrible, they called me a few months later and said I got the job. And when I first showed up to start, this is going back to 1996, here's a guy that was honorable mention all Big Ten. What the heck am I doing on a national TV show talking about Florida and Tennessee and USC and all these teams all over the country? And man, Lee from day one just made me feel like I was 10 feet tall, just one of those guys that just embraced me. And it made me feel like, I can do this. And so for that, I never forgot that. And forever have always looked at him as just a guy that he's just a partner. We've been together for, like I said, 26 years. And guys, you guys know him as being funny, being silly, putting on hats and headgears. And I know that side of him, obviously, but I know a totally different side of him and a guy that I rely on and lean on in a personal way, all this time. So we're very tight.
Yeah, because, Dan and I, we cover a lot of these games. We see most of the games we go to, truthfully, you guys are there.
Yeah.
And so we get to see you guys when the cameras are off. And it looks like you guys are all homies in real life. You and Fowler and those guys and Corso. It looks like you guys are just having the best time. And even when the cameras are off, it seems like you're just talking about the games and everything else that's going on. Is it like that in real life? Because that's what it seems like.
100%. And I think that's the key to being able to do a successful studio show is you guys, I don't know if you've worked with guys that, you got along with, but, when the light went off, you kind of went your way and they went their way. You were gracious and kind, but you're not hanging out going to dinner.
Right.
And then I've worked with people that, like on Game Day, where you know about their families, about their kids, You don't see each other for a few months, and when you reunite, everyone's like hugging each other and going out to dinners, Thursday or Friday night, and just developing incredible chemistry, not because we're supposed to, but because we like to, and a lot of times we'll be on site on a Thursday, and our ops people will set up a dinner, and we'll get a room at a nice restaurant, wherever it is, and we'll have about 10, 15 seats in a room, and we'll have a TV on, and we'll sit there and have dinner and watch the Thursday night game together, and watch the first half and just sit there and bust chops, the whole game. And I just feel like when you do things like that, you guys probably have experienced it. It transitions over onto your on-air relationship, and we're lucky, man. I think the TNT show with Charles and those guys.
Oh yeah, love it.
I think Game Day and that show, both those shows kind of feel that people actually get along with each other.
I agree. Those are the only two sports shows that I watch. I mean, I watch Get Up with Greeny as well, but like panel shows, those are the only two that I watch. Yeah. I don't feel like I get anything out of the other. I mean, the only one that exists for baseball is the one that's on MLB Network with Pedro Martinez and
I can't understand
Papi,
one word they're saying.
Big Papi and shit. Well, I mean, it's fun, but they don't really it doesn't seem the same as Charles and Kenny and those.
What's your guys' favorite? What is your favorite sports?
Well, so football obviously is number one, but and I hate to say this because we've had him on the show, Matt Leinart. I love the guy, right? But Fox is doing a morning show that is trying to replicate the success of College Game Day. It's not the same. They don't have the same chemistry there. And for me, as an Ohio State fan, obviously it sucks because they're putting all our games on at noon, just so their ratings can pick up the 45 minutes of Buckeye fans coming in before that and everything else. And I love Matt Leinart. I think it's great. I think he's great, but it's so hard to replicate the chemistry because I'm a movie guy, so my background is films, and like you don't know until you're out there. And with you guys, it's the chemistry that's there. And then the shocking part for me, in particular with you and Fowler, is the fact that it was able to translate into the booth as well. Not just college, but you guys did a Monday Night Football game where I thought after watching it that you guys should have taken over the Monday night slot. And a lot of people agreed on Twitter where, that's where you typically go for the quickest feedback, where it's like, all right, how great are these guys? For me, I was like, dude, I don't understand why they just didn't back up the truck and have you guys do the Monday Night Football games as well. So you guys are my favorite in that realm. NBA, like he was saying, I love Charles and those guys. John Anik in the UFC is one of our best friends in real life. Like, I think he's one of the best in the business.
He's definitely the best at pronouncing names.
Oh, my God.
I've never seen a guy. He's like he's like Rain Man. He's got all these little 3x5 cards with this microscopic writing on it about every single detail of that fighter's life. And he's telling me details about a guy on the undercard. I'm like, I don't give a shit about any of this, dude.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you know it. And I'm acknowledging that. Can we move on with our lives?
Exactly. And we had pitched to him because we did a show with him at the McGregor fight a couple weeks ago. We were like, hey, if you got in the booth with Kirk and Fowler, the three of you guys would just absolutely dominate. I know that they ended up going with a different team, but there's just something special about you guys and the chemistry that you have that I don't know how you can replicate it. And clearly they've tried, and now ESPN is going to
you can't force it, right?
Yeah, you can't force it. And they're going to that alternative commentary on Monday Night Footballs on ESPN2 with Peyton Manning and then switching off with Eli every week. I'm going to be looking more forward to that than anything else. Any chance that you guys show up on that?
I'll just go like this for the whole thing. Like we'll see what happens down the road. I don't know.
That would be dope, though. I mean,
we had fun. I was surprised because, man, I'm a college football guy, and I've never really thought about doing NFL. But that game, even though there wasn't one fan, there was literally not one fan in MetLife that night. We called the Giants and the Steelers. That's weird. But what I love about my job is the prep leading up to the game. You do these production meetings with coordinators. You talk with the players, and I was floored with how cool Mike Tomlin was to our crew, and how forthcoming he was, and Big Ben and Saquon with the Giants, and everybody could not have been any more receptive and gracious with their time. And that part got me really, really amped up for the game, because I was expecting them to just kind of be like, just be quick and brief, and I have no time for this. And they were the opposite, complete opposite. And what people don't realize is I think it was the next week or the week after, there was some kind of COVID issue. They moved a game to ESPN. It was, I think, a Denver New England game. So Fowler and I did a game in Clemson, and we flew right after that game, midnight, landed around 2:30 or 3 in the morning at Foxborough. We stay at a hotel right outside of the stadium. And I'm on the phone with the offensive coordinator from that next morning at like 8 or 9 in the morning with the Broncos offensive coordinator, just me and him. And we're going over everything. And in the middle of about 45 minutes into our call, his PR guy comes in and says, "Hey man, game's off." And the OC's like, he goes, we were on a Zoom, and he goes, "Did you hear what he said?" And I go, "No, what did he say?" He goes, "Game's off," and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Because I was getting ready to. I flew all this way. I'm talking to you, and here we go, and going to do a Patriots game. I was fired up. So I guess the moral of this story is I am much more receptive to thinking about the NFL in the future than I would have been prior to those experiences. And I don't know if I'll be involved with Peyton and Eli. I'm not sure the details on that. I love both those guys. They're both good friends. And I think you'll see SNL, Peyton and Eli, which they do a good job, just busting chops and having fun. But I'll be tuned in to see that as well.
Yeah, I think the reason why, though, it worked, and like Tomlin and those guys respected you. I don't know if you hear this from the players, but we interview athletes on this show all the time, in particular NFL players, and they say the same thing. They still watch College Game Day every single Saturday. They still watch the Saturday night games that you guys called. Therefore, I don't think that you realize, but in their world, you're still like the guy, like you're still the hero. So even though you flipped over to the NFL, they were like, "Oh well, shit, those are the guys I see every Saturday. Like they're still the best in the business." Yeah,
but I guess I just don't. I don't go there because I hear that from pro guys all the time. They are so proud of their school and so proud of sitting around on a Saturday and the facility and watching their team and bragging and having bragging rights. So I get that, but it's another thing when you're getting ready to call a game and the people are just as helpful as they could be. So maybe that's how it is normally for us if we do that. But it's just I guess the bottom line is if ESPN asks me down the road to do that, I think we're going to call a game again this year. With going to week 17 instead of doing ESPN a doubleheader to open the season. They always do that doubleheader, which is where we did a game last year. I think they may move us to week 17, where it's potentially right around teams trying to get into the postseason, which would add a little bit more drama to the game that we get to call. So I think we may be dabbling again this year.
Big games that week.
Yeah, tons of big games that week.
Vikings, Packers is that week.
Yeah,
that's.
We'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers. The biggest question we also get with you is how do you get on game day? How famous do you have to be the picker on game day? Me and like all my actor friends are always like, I think I'm at that level. And then you see the guy who's at that school and you're like, shit, I'm not at that level yet.
Wait, who is it for when they go to Ohio State?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. So
is it Guy Fieri or some shit?
I think, Guy Fieri, but there's so many famous athletes. There's not a lot of actors or writers. Like, I want to know who I have to drop my resume to do just one Ohio State game.
We'll get you in there, man. We'll definitely get you in there. When we hang up here, I'll call our producers and throw your hat in the ring for sure.
Is that real? Because don't tease me on this.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, we love, I tell you, that celebrity picker it's taken off. We have a lot of fun. We try to mix it up and do different people. I think right now we're doing a week 0 game in Atlanta for an HBCU game, and they're trying to get Oprah, to try to do that one. But it's fun to get different people in different walks of life, whether it's entertainment or athletes or whatever it might be. And it's just cool to see them come on the desk and we all have one thing in common. We love to talk about college football.
Well, this is that's a microcosm for why sports are so popular in the first place. It's not just because of competition. It's because of the shared experience and history, right?
Yeah.
So hearing someone like Oprah or a business person or an actor or a musician a non-athlete in general talk about that stuff, it's like you're at a bar with your friends. That's why people like podcasts, because it's like a conversation. You know what I mean? That all makes sense to me. That's a good. I'd like to see more out of the box people. You know what I mean?
Hey, if you have a list of names that you'd like to see, because we're always trying to be creative, we're always trying to be different, we're always trying to come up with some different names. So if you guys have any names that you would like to see, please let me know, because I will do our best to bring them on.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, I'm going to put mine in for the Ohio State game. And I'll go ahead and drop the full resume and everything else. But no lie, one of my best friends was on Lethal Weapon, the TV show on Fox. He played Riggs. His name was Clayton Crawford, huge Alabama fan. The first thing he said after the show got picked up for the season and like the ratings came out opening week 1, he calls me and he goes, "Hey, did you like the show?" I go, yeah, the show's awesome, man. I think you're great. And he goes, "You think I'm famous enough to get on College Game Day?" And I was like, "I don't know." I was like, have your publicist call. We'll find out.
Yeah, so. We love that, man. Again, we're trying to find people that, like you guys said, kind of outside the box, different people that would like to come on and have fun. You remember what's the actor that was on the show Coach? Craig
Nielsen.
T. Nelson.
Craig T. Nelson.
Yeah.
And of course he was Mr. Incredible's voice. He came on. He could not. Now a lot of our maybe our viewers, some of them, the younger ones, had no idea who he was.
Right.
But a guy like that comes on, you talk about entertaining. He was off the charts. But usually, you get the Will Ferrells, Bill Murray, guys like that are just naturally funny that come on there. Lot of entertainers and musicians that come on there.
Have you ever had John Sally on? Because you may not be able to get him off the set.
Yeah, we had John Sally on the show a couple weeks ago. He crushed.
Yeah, he's hilarious. He never stops. That dude doesn't stop.
He did a lot of TV back in the day. Yeah, he gets it totally. He'd be a good one.
He's working with
big Georgia Tech guy. What's he doing now?
He's working with Big 3 with Ice Cube right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were out in Vegas with those guys. We had Ice Cube on the show and John Sally, and dude, he won't leave, man. The only thing is you're gonna have to put a delay on him, probably.
Yeah, he may use some profanity. It's possible.
That's cool here, but we can't do that.
Exactly. Who's your dream guy? I'm sure.
Who I want? There's two guys that I'd love to have. Kevin Hart, and The Rock. We haven't been able to get either one of those guys, and I just feel like every time we've reached out, it's been like they're in Australia shooting something, or they're over here, or they're over there. But man, I hope somehow, some way.
Who's Kevin Hart's team?
I know Kevin Hart's team.
The Rock went to Miami, right?
Yeah, The Rock went to Miami. I'm surprised at The Rock because he's a diehard Miami guy.
I know.
That should be an easy one.
He's the busiest man on earth.
It's always been about the timing, just not right. And Rock, to me, he's we always feel like if you get to a certain level of a guy like The Rock, it doesn't have to be a Miami game. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Ideally, it would be a Miami game, but I feel like you can put The Rock or Kevin Hart, guys like that. You can put them anywhere, and they can come on.
Yeah, those are plug and play guys. I don't think Kevin went to a college at all. I think he just came right out. He was doing stand-up at 17, 18 years old.
Probably not.
Yeah.
That would have been a waste of time.
No, not at all. But yeah, every time I see the Ohio State one, I'm like, man, it's another famous guy from
Have you guys had McConaughey on for a Texas game?
Yeah, we've had him on over the years, probably 3 times total that we've had him on.
He's been on our network a couple times. He's been on this show. Great. Yeah. He's great. The guy always delivers the goods.
I mean, he loves sports too. He is a huge sports.
Oh my God.
He's part owner of the Austin FC here, and for the inaugural home game, he's out there dressed.
He was playing the bongos,
beating a bongo. I'm like, how high is Matthew McConaughey right now?
You know what's famous? What's funny about him? We got to know him pretty well. This is back in the Vince Young years, but we were in Austin. And the famous night that he was naked playing bongos, we were with him at a bar shooting pool, and he can roll, just keep going. It got to be, around 2, and I was like, hey man, nice seeing you, fun hanging. I got a 6 a.m. flight. I'm out of here. And Fowler and I both left. He kept kind of going, obviously, and then that was the night of when he left us. I don't know when, but a few hours later. And I don't even know what happened. I think he touched on it somewhere. You guys maybe talked to him about it, but that was a Saturday in Austin, home football game, late after a game. But he is a diehard fan, not as big a fan as you'll find than Matthew McConaughey.
Oh no, not at all. And I can actually follow up on that story for you and tell you what the ending was. He actually framed when he got arrested, that ticket, and it lives inside of his house. He told us on that show. He still has it up because he's proud of it.
I know.
he was proud of it. And
I'm not sure what you expected.
No. And one of my first experiences in Hollywood, I was working a private party for him, and it was like 12 people, and they were trying to get him to switch agencies, and he was 3 hours late. And the president of this agency, who's no longer with us, so I can tell the story, so he gives a shit. The NDAs have cleared by this point, but he goes, man, fuck this guy. Nobody's ever been late to something like this, blah, blah, blah. Busts through the doors, smelling like tequila, and he goes, man, I'm really sorry. That game went into triple overtime, and Texas won. Let's have some dinner. And all was forgotten. Everybody loves that guy, and it's a different world with him. And you were mentioning Bill Murray earlier, where when he shows up, it's just a different world for those guys, where they are who you hope they are, and then wherever they go into the world, you know somebody's going to have a blast with them. You just don't know who.
Yeah, that's perfectly said. And Bill Murray, I mean, half the time we were live, and I'm like, I don't even know if he knows what's going on. He's just kind of like, he's talking to people, or he's looking. We're like, okay, what do we got here? LSU and Auburn. What do you think of this one? And he's like in the middle of talking to somebody. He's like, what? Yeah, what game? What do we got? All right, hey, LSU or whatever. And he was a trip. He picked up Lee Corso, who at the time was probably, 80, 81. Picked him up because it was a Florida State Clemson game, and Lee's a Florida State guy, and he was all dressed up, to show his loyalty at the end when he made the pick. And Bill Murray picked Clemson, and he picked up Corso, almost did like a pile driver with him down on the set as we were going, like, it's pandemonium here in Death Valley. And then I pulled Lee up, and his hair was going everywhere. We're off the air, everyone's high-fiving each other. And I go, man, Coach, that was incredible. I said, when did you guys rehearse that? And he's like, I had no idea he was going to do that. I didn't know what the hell just happened. That was Bill Murray, just on his own, decided to body slam Corso.
Oh, it's great. It's amazing he's still alive after it. I wanted to ask you this because I'm always curious. Al Michaels throws this into his broadcast on the Sunday night game. He always knows the spreads. Do you know the spreads of the games as you're doing them when you're up in the booth?
It's not like I make a habit out of knowing that. I used to work with Brent, who he knew all the time. He would even say, it would be a 14-point game with a minute to go, and the team that, it's a 12-point spread, and the team that's losing is driving, and they're down to the 30-yard line. And he's like, still very interesting for some out there watching, and I'm just like, wow. This is before you could talk about that on the air, but he would sneak it in. But no, I mean, sometimes Felica will remind me, that the over-under was 59.5, and it's, the game's almost over, and it's 60 points or 59. And I always marvel at how you guys might know it better than me. I marvel at how these guys do what they do. It's just incredible how often they are right around, whether it's the over-under or the point spread. It's freaky.
There's 5 places in Vegas that do it, and there's like 4 main dudes.
4 main dudes that do it, and they do it so quickly because there's such a fast turnaround on everything. It's amazing across the board at what they do. But the reason that I ask is when you're doing some of these games on Saturday night, and it is a blowout like that, in order to keep the viewers watching, knowing so many people are gambling on it, just looking for the over, it's kind of all you have left at a certain point where you're just like, all right, shit, the third team is in. What's the over? It's 65. Yeah, let's hopefully they throw the ball here.
Well, it's funny because like on ESPN, for example, before it was taboo. You never talked about point spreads. So Lee would say if the point spread were 9, he would say they're going to win by a touchdown, an extra point, and a field goal. He would just lay it out that you're good. And if about, 2 or 3 years ago, they said, hey guys, on game day, don't worry about it. If you guys want to get into talking about it, we encourage it actually. So that changed on game day. The game itself, they've never really said, hey, have fun with the point spread. So I don't know. Now that you bring that up, you get to some of those blowout games. You're right. I mean, it gives you something to kind of hang on to, and the people that are probably still watching that are probably watching for that very reason. So you planted a seed here. I'm gonna bring that up to my boss.
Well, maybe it can be in some background, and that can be in your next book, because you got a book out now.
Yes,
and it's about kind of your life. Fatherhood, football, but there's a big part of it that's about the game day set and how things go during the season for you, right? And how you manage that and your family and all that stuff at the same time. You want to go into kind of what the premise of the book is?
Yeah, I mean, the book is obviously a lot about my experience as a broadcaster, what we've been talking about, how I got to ESPN, which I think is always something that people are fascinated about, whether it's your guys' careers or mine. People are fascinated. How'd you catch your break? I mean, I was a business major at Ohio State, and I thought I'd just do pharmaceutical sales or Worthington Industries. And I ended up taking a flyer on a local AM station, paying me $12,000 a year, and jumped on it. And it ended up, leading to eventually, I had no idea what it would lead to, but it led me to new opportunities down the road. But the book, so there's some of that, but it's really more about, as a memoir, more about going back to my dad being a hero of mine, and my parents getting a divorce, and kind of my world turned upside down. Probably like a lot of us, we all have different trials and tribulations we go through. And this is just kind of my run, my journey. And I think people will be surprised to read some of the stuff, the dysfunction that I was around as a kid. And I'm not saying woe is me. It's just my story. And so it's just everybody that's read it is like, man, I've known you for a long time. I had no idea about any of this stuff. So it's definitely a book that's a lot broader and a lot more topics than football and broadcasting. And hopefully it'll resonate with people, that either went through divorce themselves as kids, or maybe you're going through it now as an adult, and they're worried about their kids and what their kids are maybe dealing with. So put myself in a vulnerable place, and it was not easy to do, because I'm a relatively shy guy when it comes to talking about my emotions or my feelings. And at the same time, talking to Gene Wojciechowski, who I wrote the book with, he kept kind of assuring me, we got to do this the right way for the readers. And as hard as it may be in some of these topics, we got to do it. And so I'm happy with where we are. The book just came out, I think
yesterday. Yesterday. Yeah.
And pretty excited about, there's an audio version as well. That took 25 hours to get through. I read the whole book, because I was like, if I'm going to do a book about my life, I can't have a professional actor, reading my book. So I definitely wanted to read it. And I've had already a lot of people that have texted me and said, man, I'm really enjoying the audio version of your book, to hear it in your voice. So that's out there as well, if people want to check that out.
Yeah, and a lot of people will, because what I've noticed over the last 3 or 4 years is audiobooks have almost surpassed the hardbacks because of podcasts, and because they want to hear you talk. They want to hear you talk about the story of your life versus reading it, because when your voice is in somebody's headphones, talking about their own personal life and how they grew up and everything else, to me, it's a lot more personal than just reading it off of the page, a hardback or a paperback.
I mean, listening to McConaughey read Green Lights, to me, was
yeah.
pretty. I mean, you felt every single word he said.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you that's not an easy thing to do. You're really performing, and it's, it's not like how we read when we just read in our head and we're just reading. I mean, when you're reading for a book, you're animated and into it, and which is fun and cool. But I'm hoping people will check that part of it out and see if it gives them a different experience.
Yeah, but some of the tougher moments, like you were saying about being vulnerable, when you have to reread those aloud.
That was hard.
I know. And
that was hard, man.
You got to change the emotion. You got to change the inflection of the words, and have everybody go along the same journey that you were on during those parts of your life. Was that tough?
Very tough. And I'm not a professional, at this as like being an actor. And so I had a guy who was in Boulder, Colorado, who Simon & Schuster, they had put us in touch. And I was, in Nashville, just on a kind of like we're doing right now. And just happen to have all the equipment right there, and he's listening to me read literally every word. And if I had to go back, let's go back to a couple sentences there, beginning of that paragraph. So I mean, it was pretty meticulous to go through the whole thing. But yeah, you're right. I mean, thankfully, some of the story I didn't have to act. I mean, it was really. It was kind of I don't want to say emotional, but it was easy to kind of be in that spirit when I was reading the words that were written. And so I think, again, I'd love to hear your guys' feedback. I'm asking everybody for their feedback, so if you guys check it out, I'd love to hear what you guys think sometime down the road.
Well, absolutely. Look, it's on tap for me this weekend. I've got Audible. Dan and I have done audiobooks before and everything else. Yeah. Just out of curiosity, why did you choose Woj on this one, being an NBA guy?
Well, this isn't Adrian. This is Gene.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay. And he's a colleague, and
he's written some other people's docs. He has. Reggie Miller's. Jerome Bettis, I think he wrote.
Yeah, he did Bettis. He did Bob Stoops's. He did the Christian Laettner shot Kentucky and Duke. He's done several books, and he's. There was a comfort there. I guess to answer your question, there was a comfort there with him, knowing him. I don't know how you guys feel about opening up your heart to somebody, but it's a lot easier when you trust the guy you're talking to and you feel like he's going to, just, I don't know. There's certain people you can talk to where it's easier to open up to. And he was that for me.
Is that his brother, by the way?
I have no idea.
I don't think so.
It's just a wild coincidence that there's two Wojciechowskis that are connected to ESPN that strongly.
Here's what I think it is. They probably have different last names, but you are not capable of pronouncing them. That seems to be the issue.
It's Woj.
But that's nothing new on this show. He can't pronounce anybody's name.
Anyone's name. Nailed it.
Anyone's name.
Wojciechowski.
It will be DJ Ukulele all year long on this show, and I am fine with it.
That's how we roll in Ohio, right? Hey, guys, I got to roll to this next interview.
No worries. We usually end the show with a Drinkin' Bro of the Week, which is someone who has inspired you or helped you become the person you are today. Who would you like to give the Drinkin' Bro of the Week to?
It may not completely define who this person is. That's funny you just brought this up. But I flew down Saturday to Bobby Bowden's service. I knew him only from covering some of their games, but from afar, always just respected him immensely. And went there and listened to Warwick Dunn and Derek Brooks and Charlie Ward and some of his assistant coaches, Mark Richt, who worked for him, and Mickey Andrews all speak about him. And I was already there in awe of who he was as a person. No one talked about the wins and losses and all the great coaching he did. All of them talked about how he impacted them as a person. And so that, without a doubt, 91 years old, lived a great life, and he's just a special guy. So that would be an easy answer for me.
Awesome. Well, the book is called Out of the Pocket: Football, Fatherhood, and College Game Day Saturdays. Kirk Herbstreit, best in the biz. The book is out everywhere now. Please check that out. Thank you for being here. Dream come true. I appreciate it. You're going to get that resume soon for me for the college picker.
I want that. Absolutely. All right, man. Hey, you guys, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. Yes, keep crushing it.
Thank you so much. For D'Anthony Holloway, Kirk Herbstreit, I'm Ross Patterson. This is the Drinkin' Bros podcast. Good night, everyone.